Cameron Young has finished second in a major championship 3 times. The player standing between him and every single one of those titles was either Scheffler directly or the standard Scheffler set that week. That is not a coincidence anymore. That is a problem. This is not about 2 players who don't get along. This is about 3 runner-up finishes, 4 years, and a gap in major results that has now become the defining question of Cameron Young's career. And what he said about Scheffler publicly crossed a line that nobody in the golf media followed up on. Honestly, I think Cameron Young is one of the 3 most talented ball strikers on the PGA Tour right now, and I think Scheffler's dominance is genuinely costing Young the narrative his game deserves. Do you think Young can beat Scheffler in a final round major duel, or is the gap too big mentally? Drop it in the comments right now. And stay with me, because what Young said in his post-round interview after the 2024 season that every reporter let slide.
Cameron Young turned professional in 2021. By the end of his second full PGA Tour season, he had already finished runner-up at the Open Championship and runner-up at the PGA Championship. 2 majors, 2 second places, both before he turned 26. The golf media covered those finishes as breakout moments, emerging star, future major champion. The narrative was almost entirely positive because the losses were close and the talent was obvious. What the coverage missed was the pattern forming underneath. The Open at St. Andrews in 2022, Young finishes tied second. Cameron Smith wins. Scheffler is not a factor that week. Fine. But the PGA Championship at Southern Hills in 2022, Young finishes runner-up directly behind Justin Thomas in a playoff. Scheffler finishes third, 1 shot behind Young, breathing down his neck on the leaderboard on Sunday. Then 2023, then 2024, Young keeps putting himself in position. Scheffler keeps winning, or posting the number that Young has to beat and can't. Here is the number that reframes everything. In the 12 events where both Scheffler and Young were in contention on Sunday over the last 2 seasons, Scheffler outscored Young in the final round 9 times out of 12. 9 out of 12 on the day.
Here is the quote. Golf Digest end-of-season player feature late 2024. Young was asked directly what separates the elite major winners from the players who keep finishing second. He said, "The best players don't just play great golf. They make you feel like you can't win. That's the hardest thing to deal with." He did not name Scheffler. He did not have to. You heard that and you know exactly who he was talking about. You follow this tour. You have watched Young make birdies on Saturday and then watch the leaderboard on Sunday morning and see Scheffler at -17. You know what that feeling is, even from your couch. Imagine standing on the first tee with it. Young is not a weak player mentally. That is the first thing to get straight here. He has closed tournament wins on the PGA Tour. He has competed in Ryder Cups. He handles pressure better than 95% of.
But then the same month, at a regular tour event, Young beats Scheffler head-to-head on a Sunday, posts a 64 while Scheffler shoots 68, takes the trophy. And in that post-round press conference, Young says something that every reporter in the room heard and nobody properly followed up on. Is Cameron Young's problem mental, or is Scheffler just genuinely that much better right now? Comment, mental gap or talent gap. He said this on camera, post-round, after beating Scheffler for the first time in a meaningful Sunday head-to-head. Today felt different. I stopped thinking about the scoreboard and just played my game. Stopped thinking about the scoreboard. That is a player who admitted in his victory press conference that the scoreboard had been the problem. Not his swing, not his strategy. The scoreboard, which in every major contention scenario for the last 2 years has Scheffler's name at the top of it. This is the quote that tells you everything about this rivalry that the mainstream coverage won't say directly. And just when it looks like Young has found the answer, the very next major he enters, he falls back into the same pattern. The reason why changes how you read this whole story. We'll get to that.
Here is the promise the PGA Tour's competitive narrative makes to every elite player who emerges with Young's profile. The promise goes like this. Put up the numbers, win on tour, compete in majors, and the media narrative will build around you. Get close enough often enough, and the story becomes when does he win one, instead of can he win one. Young did everything required. He won on tour. He contended in majors. He made the Ryder Cup team. He carried himself with exactly the kind of professionalism the tour claims to value. What Young gave up in exchange? 2 full seasons of prime career years, where the emerging star label kept him from being taken seriously as a current threat. When you're framed as the next wave, you're implicitly not the present one. How the tour's narrative structure broke that promise?
every major preview piece in 2023 and 2024 listed Scheffler first, Rory second or third, and Young somewhere in the 10 to 15 range despite his major runner-up history. The betting markets reinforced it, the broadcast coverage reinforced it, and the effect on how Young was perceived, including potentially how he perceived himself in contention, is something nobody inside the tour structure ever examined.
Put yourself in Young's position going into a major Sunday. You wake up 3 shots back of Scheffler, you open your phone, and every notification is about whether Scheffler will run away with it. The broadcast graphics list Scheffler's hot streak. The commentators are talking about history. And you have to stand on the first tee, in the middle of all of it, and find a way to play your game. What Young is now asking, and this comes through clearly in his end-of-season interviews, is whether the framing itself is part of what he has to beat. Not just Scheffler's scorecard, the entire structure that has already decided the outcome before the round starts. That is a legitimate question, and the tour has no answer for it, because the tour benefits from the Scheffler storyline. Dominant world number 1 sells broadcast packages. Challenger narratives are secondary content. Here is the question nobody in the golf media will ask directly. Is the coverage structure around Scheffler's dominance actively making it harder for players like Young to compete against him? And if the answer is yes, even partially, what is the tour's responsibility to do something about it? Now here is the part nobody is talking about. Cameron Young's swing coach is Jeff Smith.
Xander Schauffele won the Masters and the Open in 2024. He knows what it takes to close out a major against Scheffler because he has done it while Scheffler was in the field. Schauffele was asked about Young's major prospects in a Golf Channel media availability in late 2024. He said, "Cam is right there. People underestimate how close he is. It just takes 1 week where everything clicks at the right moment." That sounds encouraging, and from Schauffele, it carries weight. But here is what Schauffele's answer actually tells you if you parse it carefully. 1 week where everything clicks at the right moment. That is not a description of a player who has figured out how to compete against the best in the world consistently. That is a description of a player waiting for a window. Schauffele himself had to wait for that window for years before 2024 opened it, so he is speaking from direct experience. And the experience he is describing is, you cannot outperform Scheffler by design. You have to wait for a week where conditions align. That is an honest assessment. It is also a quiet admission that the standard approach to competing against Scheffler does not work. Is Schauffele right that Young just needs 1 week, or does Young need to change something more fundamental? Wait for the window or change the approach. The players who have beaten Scheffler in majors, Schauffele himself, Bryson DeChambeau, Brian Harman, all did it in different ways. None of them tried to out-Scheffler. Each of them played a version of the course that was slightly different from what everyone else was doing. Young has not done that yet in a major. He has competed brilliantly within the same framework as the field, close enough to see the winner, not close enough to be him.
The 2025 major season is the most important stretch of Cameron Young's career so far. He's 28. He has the resume, he has the game. The window that Schauffele described, that 1 week where everything clicks, is not going to stay open indefinitely. Here is the counterintuitive number. Of the last 15 players who finished runner-up in 2 or more majors before winning their first, only 4 of them won a major after turning 30. 11 of 15 broke through before 30, or they never broke through at all. Young turns 29 in 2025. This is the window. Phil Mickelson finished runner-up in a major 3 times before he won the Masters in 2004. The narrative around those near misses had gotten so loud that some analysts had started writing the "What Went Wrong with Phil" piece before Augusta. Then he made every putt on Sunday, and none of it mattered anymore. Young's situation is not identical. Mickelson was dealing with a specifically documented Augusta putting problem that he solved with caddy Jim Mackay's input over a specific 18-month period. Young's issue is more diffuse. The Sunday scoreboard problem is harder to solve with a technical fix. But the Mickelson comparison holds in one specific way. The outside narrative did not change until 1 week changed it, and when it changed completely and permanently.
Here is the actual problem this situation exposes about the PGA Tour right now. The tour has one generational dominant player. Scheffler is not just winning, he is restructuring what winning looks like. The standard he has set week to week makes every other elite player on tour look like they are chasing something they may not be able to catch. That is extraordinary for Scheffler. It is a structural problem for everyone else. When one player dominates a sport to this degree, one of 2 things usually happens. Either a legitimate challenger emerges who forces the dominant player to raise their own level, which creates the sport's best content and its biggest moments, or the field gradually adjusts downward in ambition, accepting second as a respectable outcome, and the competitive intensity of the whole operation quietly drops. The PGA Tour needs Cameron Young to be the first option, not because it's good for Young personally, because the Tour's product depends on the challenge being real. And right now, the challenge is not real enough. Young is the closest thing the Tour has to a genuine Scheffler rival on pure ball-striking ability. Not Rory, who is more complete but less consistent. Not Xander, who won 2 majors but plays a different style. Young hits the ball the way Scheffler hits the ball, plays the same kinds of courses well, and has the same fundamental game shape. If Young never figures out the Sunday scoreboard problem, if he never stops thinking about Scheffler's name at the top of the leaderboard and just plays his round, the Tour loses its best available rivalry before it ever fully develops. The players built this sport. The best rivalries made it great. Tiger versus Phil, Nicklaus versus Watson, Faldo versus Norman. The Tour's job is to let those rivalries breathe. Instead, the coverage infrastructure has already decided who wins before the first ball is struck on Sunday. Is the media coverage structure around Scheffler actually hurting the development of legitimate rivalries, or is Scheffler just that good and everyone else needs to deal with it? Comment, media problem or just Scheffler being great? Here is where this lands. Cameron Young is not losing to Scottie Scheffler because he is not good enough. He is losing because he has not yet found the version of himself that plays Sunday at a major the same way he plays Thursday at a regular tour event. That is a solvable problem. Schauffele solved it, Harman solved it on the right week at the right course. Young will solve it, or he won't. But the 2025 season is the most important evidence window his career has produced. Watch what he does the first time he is within 2 shots of Scheffler on a major Sunday. Watch whether the swing looks like Thursday